Uh, so yeah, Nikhil, thanks for setting this up. Um, GameSquare is a global gaming and esports media company. We're listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange, the CSE, under the ticker GSQ, and I'll walk you through what we do and a little bit about esports as well, just to familiarize people that are on the line here. So disclaimers, forward-looking information, you guys can all read that at your leisure. This is also available on our website at gamesquare.com if you want to take a look at it or download. So I'll start with who we are in terms of who's running the company with the GameSquare management team. On the top left is Justin Kenna, who's our CEO, and he apologizes that he was not able to join the call. Business is going bananas right now, so he got pulled into another commercial discussion that he's been setting up for a while, so he was not able to join, but he does send his apologies. I will not do my best gravelly Australian accent to mimic him, but any other call that you join with him, you'll hear it yourself. So we're really pleased to have Justin join us as CEO. Prior to coming to GameSquare, he was the CFO with FaZe Clan. And for those of you that aren't familiar with esports and gaming, FaZe Clan is, I liken them to the Lakers of esports. Talk to any 13-year-old kid that likes esports and video games, they will know right away who FaZe Clan is. And outside of its notoriety and popularity, Forbes magazine also rated them as the fourth most valuable esports franchise in 2020. And that was a pretty meteoric rise, put their valuation at over 300 million US. Justin joined them in 2017, and during that time helped drive revenue from about 4 million to 10x. That, a lot of commercial deals, and helped raise $50 million in equity and debt with the company. So I think we've got a really strong professional that not only knows esports, but has a strong background in financials, production, content, and strategy. So we're very fortunate to have him come over to our company at a time when our financial profile is very similar to where FaZe Clan was a few years ago. So I think it speaks volumes to where we are heading and what we can accomplish. On the bottom right is Jan Neumeister. He's our head of Europe. He also was with FaZe Clan, which is how Justin knows him. And they met while Jan was at the City Football Club, which owns Manchester City and a number of football clubs around the world. Jan led their digital media and marketing group, and he was responsible for the sale of All or Nothing documentary on Man City, which was sold to Amazon. So really connected in with brands, and also has a background in agency, which, as I explained what we do, that'll become clear why that's important. Top right, Paul Bazzoki is our CFO, very experienced within capital markets, public companies, and he's exactly what you want out of a CFO. He's diligent and nervous and pays attention to the details of cash flow, which is valuable for us as we're building a profitable company, which is unique within esports. And then, as Nikhil said, I'm president. I come from a financial background, having worked as an equity analyst with Canaccord, and prior to that, the Australian investment bank Macquarie. And then prior to that, I was with the corporate strategy group at Rogers Communications. So why should somebody put money into our company? I'll jump into that right away. What we're doing is we're bridging the gap between global brands and large esports and gaming audiences and communities. So we sit in the middle of brands that are increasingly spending more money to reach this very difficult to touch esports demographic. Already ran through our experience management team, and that trickles down into the portfolio companies that we own. So when I look at the guys at Code Red, you know, decades of esports experience within them, and really in touch with what's going on within esports. Same thing over at GCN, the Gaming Community Network, who we acquired through Reciprocity. Excellent background in sales, partnerships, agency, digital media. So we're amassing this group of extremely talented people that are driven to succeed and driven to grow their own businesses and GameSquare as a whole. And what we're focusing on is that digital media agencies as our core business, and then looking at esports organizations and teams that are driving this new form of entertainment. And I'll get into what esports is a little bit for everybody that's on the line. And then we've got this tremendous client roster. So Code Red was announced as Bud Light's esports agency of record. We've worked with Fox Sports, Cox Communications, Geico, Chipotle, Adidas. We recently produced a tournament for the NCAA, which was sponsored by Jersey Mike's, which is a major sub-brand in the US. And we continue to grow that out through the network of professional relationships that we have. And then outside of the organic growth, esports is this fragmented industry where there is tremendous opportunity for accretive acquisitions. So that's an important part of our strategy, but it's not to overshadow the importance of organic growth and profitable organic growth. So a little bit about esports. These are big numbers, but a lot of people will say, I don't understand esports. Why would somebody sit around and watch video games on their mobile phone, on their PC, on their tablet, whatever digital media they're focused on? People just, they shrug their shoulders and don't get it. But there's 600 million people around the world that are doing it, that watched 100 billion hours of esports in 2020. And that same group of 600 million people don't understand why people tuned in to watch the Leafs lose three games straight against the Canadians. They don't understand why somebody would watch the Super Bowl. That's outside of their understanding either. And so even though we don't understand why somebody's doing it, inarguably people are doing it and brands are noticing that. And this is a really tough to reach demographic because when you think about the media, and I have my 7-year-old daughter sitting next to me having lunch while doing remote learning, she doesn't consume media the way that I did. I used to turn on the TV when I was allowed, and every 6 minutes, there's 2 minutes of commercials in that broadcast. She watches Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime. Kids are using TikTok, which is snackable media that's 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Kids today have their own tablets, they have their own laptops. They are not being reached in the same way that we were. And so this ability to target hardcore gamers that are consuming media in a different way is a really exciting space to be in from a marketing perspective. So what does our portfolio look like? I've talked about our focus on agencies. We went public in October with Code Red, which is the authentic esports agency. And they represent talent. And the big part of their business, there's 3 layers and I'll go through them, but the big part is working with influencers. And influencers are folks that are streaming online, are posting on their various social networks, and they have an audience that follows them. They're listening to what they're saying. And these are people that have 100,000 to 250,000 followers. And people care about what they say, and brands want to work with them to reach their end audience. The Gaming Community Network is in North America. It's based out of LA. They're a digital media group that does bespoke marketing and campaigns, really creative, unique ways. There's no single approach that they do for any one client, and they're working with really big names within the industry to bring those brands to the fans and connect them. We also have minority ownership in teams, and where teams isn't our focus. What we do like about these teams, and this goes across our entire organization, is that they're all break even or profitable. And what we do like about teams is the enormous amount of content, authenticity, and followers that these teams amass. And what we're finding within the esports org model is the monetization streams are lagging the engagement by their audience. So what I mean by that is that there are a number of orgs that have a tremendous amount of content that they've created through the games that they play, through events that they attend, and they're not getting paid as well as they should, whether that's through sponsorships, whether that's through actually selling the rights and creating content that's really compelling and unique. And so we like that side, and that's where the experience of Justin and Jan being at FaZe Clan is so valuable as we look at these orgs that we have a minority ownership in, as well as other organizations acquire in the future. So I talked about this briefly, but effectively what we're trying to do at GameSquare is bridge the gap, this brands to fans. So on the left side of the screen is the brands that have entered into esports. They've either dipped their toes or have started to invest more heavily to reach those fans. On the right side are the distribution networks. So I talked about at the top, the influencers that have their audiences. In the middle are websites that cater to esports, whether it's specific sports or more broadly esports information. And then you've got the streaming networks. And so we use those distribution networks to reach the end fan. And we sit right in the middle of that with GCN and Code Red. And so that we're getting paid on intellectual property for the know-how of how to create the campaigns and the messaging within the existing brand guidelines of the clients that we work with. And then bringing that message to the hardcore gamers at the right side, those 600 million people that are following esports on an annual basis, and that's a growing number. And so we're getting paid well and profitably to sit in the middle and deliver for brands that haven't wrapped their head around how to hit the esports audience. And I will give a shout out to the GCN guys for the bridging the gap. We've assumed that as our own, but they're the ones that came up with that. And then Code Red, I said, their tagline is the authentic esports agency, and they really are. They're one of the largest in Europe and one of the largest in the world. They've been nominated as supporting agency of the year a number of times. So these guys are top tier, and the influencers that they represent and are growing is a really important part of the business. They also do consulting, which that's orgs, it's brands that are trying to figure out how to reach the esports audience, and they're bringing their deep expertise to their clients on the consulting side. But really, the most important piece, I think, of the business is this influencer model, and to use an analogy that might resonate with people that are on the line, kind of the Jerry Maguires of esports, not in terms of representing the player with the team, but in terms of bringing Reebok as a sponsor of the content that the influencers create. And so influencers will use products and services, talk to their followers. And what's really important within esports and potentially different than a lot of other forms of entertainment is that authenticity really matters. You need to understand what the brand is trying to achieve to match them up with the right influencer and find that sweet spot where the brand and the influencer can appropriately reach the fan in an authentic way, because esports, like millennials esports fans, they're not going to put up with inauthentic connections when it comes to the brands. And then the last piece, and not the last piece. I haven't talked about GCN yet. So this is the full service digital media group within GameSquare. Tremendous amount of reach. And so again, this is deep expertise within the agency and the media world. So the two co-founders, Keo Wimmer and Jeff Griffith, they have cut their chops at major brands throughout their careers, which span, coming up on 30 years, where they've worked at UFC, they've worked with Learfield, which represents NCAA conferences. Keo was with Fox Sports and helped launch that channel, so really understands how that world works. And then Jeff came through Rodale, moved into Curse Media, which was owned by Twitch, which is owned by Amazon. And so Jeff really understands how to target people with websites and digital properties and together they're this really great mix. Recently brought on CMO Chris Kint, who was with Digitas. He was with Red Bull Media House, so massive brand. And Chris worked on the Think Different campaign for Apple. And so he really understands both the client side and the agency side. So you've got this powerhouse trio that are running GCN, and we're seeing the revenue ramp up and the flywheel start to spin here. And they're the reason that we acquired Reciprocity, which was announced in December and closed in March. And then the last piece of this is the orgs that we acquired. So League of Legends, which is arguably the biggest game in the world when it comes to esports. This is a team that's based in Mexico City, so big reach within Latin America, 18 million plus followers. And then in Asia, we've got LGD Rec, which is a Crossfire franchise, and Crossfire is owned by Tencent. Tencent's the biggest gaming producer in the world. They've got 32 million followers, and this gives us our foothold to bring brands into China that are trying to do the international expansion. So, both of these teams give us nice optionality because, like I said, they're not burning cash. They're profitable, and there's a lot of growth ahead of them. And we think that, again, the work that Justin and Jan did with FaZe Clan, I think gives us a really unique perspective in terms of understanding how to monetize both these orgs as well as other orgs that we might look at in the future. But to be really clear for anybody that does really understand esports, we're not looking to acquire teams that are big cash burners that have to spend a lot of money to buy into games. We want to acquire eyeballs in terms of the audience. We want to acquire content, and we want to acquire good brands where we can ramp up merchandise sales, as an example, to bring these orgs to profitability quickly. So in terms of our growth strategy, we're really focused on the highly profitable digital media and agency businesses. So I've talked about that with Code Red, with GCN, and that's an important part of our pipeline. So we want to continue to focus there, and that's going to drive our organic scaling. The one thing I haven't talked about is the kind of margins that digital media groups can achieve, and at maturity, we're seeing that the companies are in that 40 to 50% EBITDA margin range, which puts us in a really nice place to be one of the only, if not the only, esports org in the world, certainly publicly listed, that can talk about profitability. And we think that whether it's 12 months out, 18 months, 24, investors are going to start looking at cash flow as an important metric for this space. Right now, there's a lot of explosive growth and there's a lot of opportunity, but that'll turn at some point. And when I cover technology stocks, that becomes part of the conversation: is at what point do they become profitable and stop having to go to the market to finance growth? We're there now in terms of our cash burn will sustain us for roughly 6 quarters without having to raise in the absence of any M&A that we do. So I think we're in a really nice spot for growing our business and not being beholden to the markets to help us fund it. We also want to grow our partnerships, and so this is where the transatlantic power of Code Red and GCN really comes in, and also introducing some of those partners into Latin America and into to Asia through the orgs that we own minority stakes in. We think there's a lot of potential to use, like I said, that end audience and the scale and the reach that these orgs have. And then finally, the important piece of our growth strategy is M&A. We went public with the acquisition of Code Red. We subsequently acquired GCN through Reciprocity, and we expect that with a pretty healthy pipeline where we're looking at transactions that would bring in revenue profiles of kind of between that $5 and $20 million range, largely with stock, little bit of cash, lots of opportunity for earnouts to accelerate the growth and to show folks what we're buying. We think that the ability to grow through M&A is really strong, and we're excited about the opportunities that are being presented to us. I will say that there are some very aggressive multiples that some vendors are looking for, kind of approaching the nosebleed space. We're not interested in nosebleed multiples because at some point we're going to have to justify what we paid, and we would rather have the sellers benefit from an increase in stock price through the performance of their businesses rather than taking a lot of money off the table up front. So we want to prove out that what we're buying makes sense and is smart. So with that, I think I've kept it to 25 minutes here, so we've got plenty of time for questions from anybody that wants to know a little bit more about esports or about our company specifically.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So while we're waiting for some questions, excuse me, I did get some via email from some folks who couldn't make the call this afternoon. So maybe while we wait for some questions from the audience, we can start with some of those, Kevin.
Absolutely, hit me.
Awesome. So the first one's about engagement and reach for your audience. Can you comment a little bit about that, and sort of how does that break down between different geographies, and any kind of color that you can provide there?
That's probably reaching in terms of my knowledge of the geographies across the world. But what I will say, the U.S. is one of the most important markets, not because of the size of the viewers, but just the commerciality of it. There's a lot of marketing dollars. If you look down the Fortune 1000 companies, a lot of them are based in North America. So lots of opportunities for working with brands, as well as with major sports leagues and sports teams. There's a lot of convergence that's going on within entertainment and sports. And I go to Juju at the Steelers is a great example. Here's an NFL star, a bona fide star in the NFL, who is also a bona fide star within TikTok, which those audiences may not actually be overlapping, but his TikTok fans become NFL fans. His NFL fans follow what he's doing on TikTok, and it makes him a more marketable player and a more marketable celebrity when it comes to working with brands. So we think there's a lot of opportunity there. Obviously, Europe is kind of neck and neck with the U.S. in terms of the importance of that market. And again, the scale of Europe relative to the U.S. is much bigger, and the commercial brands that are there that are Bud Light, Europe is a great example. They're working with Code Red to push further into esports and do it in a thoughtful, effective way. And then we like Europe, we like Asia through our team there. Massive market. On a GDP per capita is lower, but the number of people is so high. So lots of opportunities there. And then we like the growth that's happening in Latin America. Brazil's one of the most important gaming markets on the planet, just by the sheer size and growing GDP of that country.
Got it. Excellent. And maybe as a follow-up to that, if I put on my old analyst hat, how does that sort of interplay with your team model and Code Red and GCN? Is there some kind of flywheel effect that you're starting to see already?
Yeah, so it's early days in terms of the integration. I think we've worked really hard on the integration between GCN and Code Red even before we closed the transaction. So we think that there's good opportunities for them to work together when it makes sense for their businesses. We don't want to mash two orgs together and force them to do things that aren't in their wheelhouse. But good integration with those. We have started to have conversations with some of the teams in terms of activations that we can do, and how do we leverage the expertise that we have at Code Red, at GCN, to help grow those businesses. And then certainly as we're looking at other acquisitions, I think the insight that the guys at that the team at Code Red and at GCN have in terms of tools that they use to better place themselves with the brands, and then also the insight that they have in terms of how to amplify messaging within organizations, how to collaborate on events. Is there the opportunity for broadcast talent that's represented by Code Red to be used in events that are run by and produced by GCN? So I think that we will increasingly see more collaboration and more help between the core companies that we have, especially as we add other assets in that there's the opportunity to bring those expertise to the acquisitions that we're able to complete.
Awesome, great. I have a few more here, and I'm getting some DMs as well. So I guess the first question would be, are you also seeing any kind of change in behavior from brand managers and CMOs in terms of allocating their marketing spend towards esports and perhaps away from traditional media channels?
Yeah, so I can't really speak to which channels they're pulling money out of, or if they're just increasing the marketing spend. But certainly, we're seeing more and more brands dipping their toes in the water to trial things within esports. GCN's had a lot of success, and Code Red's seen the same thing with some of their clients. That it's kind of that land and expand model. If you go back to your analyst hat, once the client's in the door, we're able to increase the spend as they see that it's working. Anecdotally, at the start of the year, Cadillac indicated, and there's lots of these brands that you can point to, but Cadillac said that they were going to start investing in esports to reach that tough to reach demographic, and they're doing it as a brand awareness exercise. They're not trying to see how many esports enthusiasts are buying Cadillacs, but they're trying it out, and it's a new place to do it. And then on a really large scale, last year, McDonald's indicated that their spend, they increased their marketing spend for the year by $200 million in the midst of COVID, which represented 1 month of incremental marketing spend. And what's interesting about that then is that some of that, and like they're sponsors of live events and they work with different orgs. The follow on to that is that they're increasing their spend within esports. And what's interesting to us is, and we get this question in terms of who do you compete with? Are you competing with the WPPs of the world, the really large media companies and agencies? And what we say to that is that, if McDonald's makes the decision that they're going to allocate $2 million in a month to esports, you're likely not going to see a traditional agency that doesn't have the experience in esports jump forward to take on that $2 million of esports work, because the account manager who may be running hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing spend doesn't want to put the major contract at risk for a very small contract. For us, that $1 million of spend is meaningful, and it's something that we can step up and authentically direct our clients in terms of how to use that money and how to get the best ROI and bang for the buck for the client.
Excellent. Got a few questions via DM as well, so I'm just going to read those out. First question is from Parth, and
Hey, Parth.
what does your sort of customer pipeline for GCN and Code Red look like at the moment?
Yeah, so without getting into dollars, it's really strong, and management over at Code Red, they're very conservative, so we're constantly pleasantly surprised by the progress that they're making within their business. But the influencer segment continues to grow. I think now that the UK is getting back to normal, big air quotes, normal there, we could definitely see the broadcast talent segment start to spin up again as tournament organizers start to look at organizing these tournaments, and whether that means there'll be more tournaments that are held in the US or in the UK while the rest of the world plays catch up. We'll see how that pans out. And then when I look down the list of names and organizations and brands that GCN has in their pipeline. I mean, it's very strong. You know, a pipeline is just a pipeline until it's converted. But I think we're really pleased with the opportunity that's ahead of them, and you know they're still confident that they're gonna hit their earnout. We're 3 months in, and we've provided good funding to the business. So you know now they've got a sales force in place on the East Coast, West Coast, and the Midwest, and we're expecting to see results come out of them really quickly and start converting that pipeline into the sales. So short answer is really strong pipeline at both, and I think that both businesses are capitalized in a way that sets them up for success.
Excellent. And on a slightly different tack, but somewhat related, could you talk a bit more about the partnerships that GCN and Code Red could sort of get into, and what would that look like?
Yeah, so it's you know a good example is the NCAA tournament that just took place with Van Wagner. So you know as we get more deeply integrated, as there's an opportunity to use broadcast talent to integrate in with these events, you know that's a nice partnership between the two of them. It's some of the production capabilities at GCN are really high quality. We have a partnership with Blackfire Innovation, which is out of UNLV in Vegas. Our head of partnerships, Drew Brunson, was instrumental in helping to set that up. So this is, I mean, take a look online for Blackfire Innovation. It's an unbelievable facility that can produce really high quality stuff. So as the requirement exists for you know any briefs that come through to Code Red to use really high quality production, we can do that. And then also in terms of, and we'll start looking at this more, GCN's very good at amplifying content. And you know the beauty of an online model where you're targeting specific people for a specific amount of time at a specific time means that if there are streamers that are doing larger events and want more eyeballs on those events during that time, GCN can step in and use the technologies that they've developed to amplify the messaging and the eyeballs on those events, which we've seen in the past. How that's worked is it's increased not only the eyeballs, which is a good ROI for the sponsor of the event, but it's also led to more followers of the streamer, because people that may not have seen them in the past are able to get their eyeballs on the influencers through the technology that the GCN has. So I think we're starting to develop those partnerships, and then also, you know, for us at corporate, the ability to just have more insight and more feet on the ground in terms of what are the great companies to work with, and you know, are there some that are potential acquisitions that are in there? That's really valuable to us as we're building up our pipeline.
Excellent. Slightly different question. Could you speak a bit more about, you know, big client wins such as Bud Light? How does that come about? What does that look like, you know, from a contract win perspective? And what's the scope to sort of, you know, enhance the your wallet share in terms of their marketing spend and budget going forward?
Yeah, so you know the trick with any of that is deliver great quality work, and Code Red does that. So you know they'll continue to increase the spend with the clients that they work in. You know, and the way that you know business development is, you know, it's a mix of outbounds and inbounds. And so you know inbounds are easier because they're coming to us. Outbounds take more time. You know, and if you've been on our LinkedIn profiles, you've seen that GCN, GCN, they're hiring sales folks, but also that Code Red is hiring, and you know, I think their job posting's gone now, so I'm not speaking out of school, but a commercial director based out of the UK, because we're starting to see spend come back into the market as COVID worries are lifting, and and that's above the weighty growth that we've already seen in what brands are spending, and good evidence of that. Our Q1 numbers, Code Red doubled their revenue year over year, almost doubled at 97%, which is just a remarkably strong number from the financial perspective. So, we're not going to expect a doubling year over year in every quarter, but it speaks to the strength of what's going on within esports.
Gotcha. And this next one, I think you've kind of touched upon a little bit, and it's a question we've gotten on previous investor calls as well. In terms of the overall sort of macro picture with COVID and whatnot, and I know you alluded to the UK a short while ago, how are you thinking about, reopening in late summer and the fall and beyond, just in terms of the esports sort of sector in general? How are you guys positioned for that? And in your perspective, does that lead to a big kind of change one way or another when things start reopening and folks are spending more time outdoors than the last 15 months?
Yeah, so my view on this, and our view broadly, is that COVID has probably accelerated the move for brands to look at esports. Had COVID not happened, they may have carried on for a little longer as is, but brands that were historically B2B have had to look at how do they do the B2C route, and esports has been one of the areas that they've invested into to go through. So do I think that that's going to go away post-COVID? I don't think so. Brands have seen the effectiveness of marketing and advertising to this millennial cohort that's very interested in video games. In terms of the big change, really, it's going to be on the live event side, and so that's been negligible over the last more than 12 months. I think events really started to fall off in February and March of 2020. So as those come back, there'll be that will be the segment of our business that really rebounds, and that will help GCN in terms of organizing and producing events. It will help on the sponsorship side in terms of finding sponsors and bringing brand dollars into those events, and certainly on the broadcast talent side for Code Red, we'd expect fingers crossed a return to where that business was, which was a very meaningful part of Code Red's revenue. They more than made up for it in the influencer side, but I'd expect pretty good growth as events come back. They're not coming back next month, but over the next 6 months, we should see that shift.
Excellent. The next question was in terms of client concentration. We've spoken about some big clients in the past. How are you thinking about that? Is that sort of increasing or decreasing, and what does that trajectory look like?
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of worry in terms of the client concentration, and as GCN grows and as Code Red grows, we'll diversify even further, because there are a lot of new clients that are coming into the mix to diversify the business and diversify the revenue profile. So we're not worried that if a single client walks away, and likewise if one or two talent decide that they're going to move on, and there's definitely some churn within the clients that we represent. Nobody's representing even 10% of the revenue within the company. So we're in a good place there.
Excellent. Just a couple more here on my list, and I think we're coming up on time as well. In terms of a target business model, you've kind of mentioned, some of the revenue profile and EBITDA margin profiles of some targets you might look like. Beyond that, when you think about your company in the short to medium term, is there a target business model that people should be thinking about?
Yeah, so it's that focus on profitability. We want to continue to focus on digital media groups, and so if I think about our pipeline, like probably 80% of potential acquisitions are within that digital media and digital agency space, and that's with a focus on esports, but also some traditional sports properties as well, in terms of sports agencies that focus on traditional sports, because like I said, there's convergence that's there. Geographically, the focus on those is going to be in North America and in Europe predominantly. And then, like I said, orgs there's some really attractive orgs out there, and I don't want to say that they're distressed assets, but certainly there's some investor fatigue in terms of wanting to put more money into private companies. So I think we have really good opportunities to look at groups that have those outstanding content assets, that have really great brands, that benefit from coming into an organization that has an outstanding influencer and consulting business, that has outstanding chops within digital media and amplification, and then our ability to attract other people into our org to tackle some of the other pieces. So yeah, I don't know if that's exactly the target model, but focus on high growth, largely within esports, broaden it out to sports and entertainment, focus on digital media that's profitable, and rule in orgs on a very selective basis.
Excellent. Yeah, I have a couple more on my DM list here. So in terms of cash burn, you mentioned there's about 6 quarters of runway left. Can you help us understand some of the key areas and priorities that are existing for the company today in terms of deploying your capital, and how we should think about that?
Yeah, so funding GCN on the sales side to accelerate the sales growth, and really to help them hit their earnouts, which the transaction was done at first tranche of 5 million revenue, and second tranche comes at 7 million. Those are US numbers, so broadly kind of 6 to 9 million. Hold on, I have a remote learning child that needs something. What are you? No. Okay, so and now I've completely lost my track. But yeah, the focus, sorry, is on helping them to achieve those revenue and EBITDA targets. 20% EBITDA target is where the earnout was set for Reciprocity, and then also looking at Code Red as they want to grow and accelerate their growth. They're profitable, but are we able to help by putting in some pounds to help accelerate that? And then the other place that we would look at, which would accelerate our or bring down our cash level somewhat, is in acquisitions, where if we do a smaller acquisition that we can't raise against, then we'll use some cash in that to bring on good groups that we like to bolster our financial profile as well.
Excellent. I think we've run through the questions that I had on my list of emails and DMs. So I don't know if you have any closing remarks, Kevin, and for the audience, please feel free to kind of follow us on the GameSquare website or the Sophic Capital website. There's email lists that all of us have. Please feel free to sort of reach out, and if you need any information, don't hesitate to ask. Kevin, any closing remarks from your side?
Yeah, the only closing remarks that I would say is, people ask about what are the catalysts coming up, and what is, kind of what's that burning platform for, why do I have to own it today? I think we'll continue to have good customer announcements that come out, so watch for our press releases. I think one of the most material events that's coming in the near future, and we've already press released this because we changed our auditors so that we had a PCOAB certified audit firm. We're pursuing an OTC listing in the US. And so right now, because we're CSE listed, with the majority of our assets, or a large portion of our assets and bodies, are down in the US, it's very difficult for US investors to invest on the CSE. So once we get this OTC listing, which we believe is imminent, that should bring a lot more eyeballs to the stock. So if I was thinking about, why do I need to own it today? Get in before a lot of Americans can benefit. And if you want to see what Americans think about esports, take a look at EBET, EBET. I think they've got like 100. Well, I won't comment on what their financials look like, but they were a rocket ship out of the gate. So Americans like esports.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. Thanks for your time, Kevin, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody for joining.